regular cable news channel. The Airtable is open for submissions, so anyone who has a question or comment, please feel free to submit that to the Airtable. The link will be posted in the chat shortly, and it is also on the agenda. Friendly reminder that all comments or questions posted in the Airtable are part of the public record associated with this meeting. And with the housekeeping aside, a warm welcome to our new member, Catherine Clear. Welcome to our Brady Bunch Squares. We look forward to having you with us in this virtual setting and also hopefully in person in the future.
Thanks a million, Gloria. Looking forward to getting to work with all of you. Thanks.
Well, welcome and congratulations. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Phil.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate actually all three of you, Chris and Ming Chen and Catherine. It's a pleasure to work with you. I only have a short time remaining, but for that amount of time, it will continue to be a pleasure. So congratulations. I want to make a very brief statement. As you know, we really cannot comment on personnel matters, but I do want to make a statement for the public, and that is that Michael Colson has resigned from his employment in the Westford Public Schools. His resignation, formal resignation, will be effective June 22nd of this year. Mr. Colson will not be returning to the district as a teacher. I know there may be some questions, but we are not allowed to discuss personnel matters. So that statement hopefully will answer some questions from people who have been on for a few weeks now, and I won't have any other comment on that. I do want to congratulate Anya Gessen, who has coordinated a clothing drive through Project 351. This is a project that was started under the Deval Patrick administration in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. It is young adults doing positive things for their town, for their community, for their area. And Anya, has coordinated a clothing drive to benefit Cradles to Crayons. And we received overwhelming support from the community already, and she has done an outstanding job, and she's still accepting donations. I want to congratulate Mary O'Gorman and others in the Westford Academy Robotics team for putting on some outstanding demonstrations for our elementary students. If you have a chance, I'll send you some photos of their presentations, and the students have really had a wonderful opportunity to explore robotics and become more interested in the sciences and robotics specifically. And so I want to thank them for their outstanding effort. As I've been going around the schools, I want to reiterate again the extraordinary effort of our teachers and all of our staff. Talking with a number of the high school teachers this morning, watching them once again teach a live class, but also live streaming to a number of students at home. Absolutely no complaints, but endless work on their behalf. And so it's been an extraordinary effort by everyone, and I can't thank them enough. I do want to give you an update also on our Director of Finance position and also the Facilities Operations Supervisor position. We are going to re-advertise the Director of School Finance position. We have relatively few applicants, and they are not acceptable. We have about 13 applicants for the Facilities Operations Supervisor. From that group, we will glean about 3, perhaps 4, and we will interview them. I'll talk with Chris this week about setting up interviews with the team. And we hope to certainly will include Jody or Eric Heidemann if she requests that. And we hope to have a person hired within the next 2 weeks. So a little bit frustrated over the Director of School Finance position, but we will re-advertise and see if another round of advertising brings some additional luck. So that is it, a relatively brief update tonight, because I know we've got a lot to talk about.
Okay, thank you for all those updates, Bill. Carrie?
I just have one update. I want to just talk about the May 4th professional development that we had that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the district. This was a full day affair, as you know, because students were not in school on that day. And the DEI subcommittee worked together tirelessly to put this day together so that it was valuable for staff, so that it was interactive, and so that it provided kind of a launch pad for our future work as a district. So Dr. Khalees Wernham was an incredible keynote. She's so dynamic and full of knowledge on this topic. And although it was all remote, she connected with each person, it felt like, individually, even though there were over 500 people participating. And the topic of her talk was cultural proficiency. And we talked about culture, and she kind of walked us through helping to define culture as the filtering we all use to make sense of the world. So it's not about race specifically or a certain religion. It's what we feel based on our lives. What does it mean to be kind, or to see kind, or to be mean, or when to speak, or how loud to speak? And every student comes with their own culture. And from a teacher's point of view, it's about being flexible and adaptable so that we can deliver school in a way that really speaks to every individual child. So it was a motivating discussion. Again, her presence is just so big and so powerful, and I felt like I was hanging on every word, and I know others felt the same way. The breakout groups, which allowed people time to process together everything that they had heard and talk about how that applies to their day-to-day practice. It was filled with rich, exciting discussions. And as I had mentioned last time, there were 51 facilitators so that the groups could be small and manageable. There was about 12 people in every group. And the feedback, the formal feedback that we received was very favorable, and people were left wanting more. And we always know that when we bring in great speakers or focus heavily on a topic, it's not a one and done. It's not a say and spray and then pray that people get it. It's something that truly we are committed to as a district and as a town. And you know, the superintendent has done a lot of work with the DEI committee to get us started. And Dr. Chu and Bill and I have already started reviewing the feedback, and discussions have begun as to how we can most effectively continue this journey forward. We're looking at different texts, some of which Dr. Wernham had suggested that we can use with the leadership team next school year, because while this will be a district-wide initiative, it's important that we also have principals having some additional work in this area so that they can help lead their building in a forward and positive direction. So it was quite a success.
Thank you. Certainly the report we got on it, but before it occurred, sounded so exciting, and I'm so glad that it was a successful, productive day. Congrats for all the work that went in to you, really, and the entire team that prepared that, because it takes a lot of preparation for those days to be successful. So thank you for all of that. Spectacular. Next up, finance update.
Hi, everyone. We're going under some major changes in the business office currently. We lost our previous payroll person to a district up in New Hampshire, closer to her home. And Meg in our department, who was doing part payroll and part AP, has moved into the position full-time. She completed her second payroll today. She's doing a wonderful job with it. She's able to think critically about how it's being prepared, ways to prove that it's correct, and all those things that you look for in someone that's doing payroll. And Nancy Hill, who's been at the office for some time, has a lot of knowledge of the schools and what goes on in the schools and the players at the school and who does what, has stepped up into the AP role. She's just come back from a small vacation and seems well rested and ready to begin that job. Jan's still struggling with her father's passing, and she's gone back and forth to visit her mother in Virginia. She's away this week. She's going to come in Thursday just to clean things up. And then her daughter's graduation's on Friday. So we kind of still sporadic and lower numbers, but making it all come together. The other thing, major thing we're working on is Munis. We're having Munis take over we have very clunky system. We're not using it to the best of its ability. We're kind of garbage in and we're getting a lot of garbage out. We're finding a lot of glitches in the software and a lot of shadow systems in Excel. And you have to look in 5 places to get something we should be able to pull up easily in one report in Munis. So we're starting all that training on June 9th, and it's going to be pretty extensive because we want it up and running and really easy to function by the time July 1 and the new fiscal year begins. And I think that's about all. We're working on the town report, the town book for Dan at the town hall, which is interesting and fun considering he wants FTEs, and we've had people on furlough, people out of furlough, people moving from grants. It's like, it's like, I don't know, the Russian dolls, like bringing out new people and losing people. So we're continuing to get through it all, though, and it's most fun. I love working with everyone at the central office. Really, some great people there. I guess that's it. Unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much. We know there's a lot of juggling, and I think people do underestimate how much, influx and outflux there is in terms of staff and students throughout the course of a school year. We do not end with the same composition of folks that we start with. There's a lot of flux in between, and people don't always realize that. So thank you for all the juggling.
Thanks.
Look,
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure, Chris.
Yeah, so you mentioned like the moving things to Munis. I mean, is it your sense that it sounds like there are some redundancies as far as information data being kept in multiple spreadsheets? Is it your sense that once we're fully in Munis, that will increase some of our efficiencies and some things will be a little smoother, hopefully?
That's my greatest hope, because not only with this multiple spreadsheets, there's so much more room for errors, and everything I look at is this right, is this really right? And I'm checking formulas, and there's a lot of extra work that goes into something that should be much more simply prepared.
That's good news. Thanks.
Chris, may I also say, and Gloria, Chris and Gloria, may I also say that about 2 weeks ago, I met with Tom Campbell. Tom is a very, very highly regarded expert in human resources in the public sector, particularly school systems. And I asked Tom to do a process review and recommendations for us in terms of the division of labor between HR and payroll, so that we have a clear delineation of tasks, responsibilities, reporting, accountability. So he will be meeting with me again next week. I'll involve Chris in that meeting also, but Tom is about as good as they come. In fact, I believe he was in the same doctoral program as Chris and Kerry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but extraordinarily highly regarded. So that will be a very, very beneficial study for us.
Valerie.
Just either as part of a finance update or as part of a COVID update in a future meeting, since we're kind of coming up to the end of the school year, can we get an update on all the COVID funds and what's kind of remaining? And
yes,
kind of, it would be great if for the public as well to just kind of see in one place where we've spent it and how much it really has all come to. I know I, for one, at least lose track of the names of all of them and the amounts and everything. So a one-pager summary would be awesome.
Actually, we do have that. I think Kerry has that on her agenda for our team meeting tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love it when administration anticipates a question before it's asked. That's wonderful. Thank you. Do we have school committee updates? Alicia.
So the CPAC had a general meeting last week, and I think the overarching message out of that meeting is there's a lot of concern about the social emotional well-being of not just special education students, but all of our students as we go through the end of this school year and into next year. There's a lot of concern about catching kids up academically, but there's also the stresses of being back, the stresses on our staff, on our students. There's the pressure to catch up. I would encourage anyone who has concerns about their child's social emotional well-being and has an IEP, reach out to your team, talk to your team. And if you're a general ed parent, reach out to your school's guidance counselor. I think there's a lot of resources we can share. And I've heard a saying recently, we're not necessarily all in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. And I think if you are looking for resources and for help, please do reach out. I can also, there are a couple of questions I have about extended year, but I'll save that for later. I can also share that there's a basic rights workshop tomorrow night. Sorry, not tomorrow night. Whoa, I jumped ahead a day. Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and that will be online. And then on June 9th, they will be electing their board of directors for next year. And all of that information can be found on the CPAC's web page, the CPAC's Facebook page.
Another update I had is we received several letters from some of our 8th grade students, and we've realized that these are likely connected to the civics projects that they're working on this spring. So we want to acknowledge that we've received those letters. We're going to be speaking with the administration about what is the appropriate way for us to acknowledge and respond to those letters. In a way that is educationally appropriate and makes sense for what they're doing in their projects. But if anyone is out there and is connected with one of those 8th graders, we did want to say thank you for the very impressive letters we received. And we will absolutely be getting back to those students soon. We just realized, since there were a number of requests, instead of responding to them one at a time, that we ought to have just kind of a common protocol about how the school committee responds to those. So we may have some small meetings with 1 or 2 school committee members, or refer them to like the policy subcommittee or whatever group might be helpful to address their concerns. But we definitely want to hear their thoughts about how to make our school system a better place, because we're excited to engage with them. Any other school committee updates, Valerie?
Just a quick congratulations to anyone involved with the Westford Academy Theater Arts performance, The Lifespan of a Fact. I was lucky enough to get a ticket on Friday night and enjoyed some child-free moments watching and enjoying, and it was really well done and I was really impressed. It was great to see events happening in person, and just the performance was awesome.
And I'll tack on there and just say that it's exciting that we're seeing live theater in Westford, and there are a number of performances coming up. There's one that's going to be virtual. It's going to be streamed this week. I think it's this week, Songs for New World. But then there'll be several more live performances in the next month or so. So we'll keep an eye out for those, and as I get information on those, I'll try to bring it here as well.
Excellent, thank you. Looking forward to seeing some familiar faces in our live theater.
Gloria, may I say also that if you have a chance, if you get over to Westford Academy, take a look at the stage that has been erected in the courtyard. There will be some performances there. It is very impressive. It's still under construction, but very, very exciting with what Mr. Towers has planned for it.
Never one to let a pandemic stand in the way of theater. Thank you. Any other updates? Any waves? Okay. Our student representatives were unable to join us this evening, but hopefully we'll have them at our next meeting. So next up, let me refresh and go back to the Airtable and see if we have any questions. We do have one. It looks like it's pertaining to school choice. So I'll address it at that point in the meeting. But that looks like the only one I'm seeing so far. So for the school choice public hearing, Bill, do we need to do the official vote in to open the hearing for this, like we've done?
We should, because chapter 76, section 12B, which is the school choice law, requires a public hearing prior to any possible vote to not participate in school choice. Under the ed reform legislation that initiated school choice, every school district is assumed to be participating in school choice unless, after feedback from a public forum, public hearing, you decide not to participate. So that's the importance of at least allowing the public to speak either for or against participation in school choice.
Okay, then we will follow procedure and vote ourselves in and out. So I will make a motion to open the hearing for public hearing on school choice on May 10th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And vote is to Chris,
Aye.
Alicia,
Aye.
Ming Chen,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Valerie,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
and I. Did I get everybody? I think so. So that's unanimous, and the hearing is now open, Bill.
All right, so at this point in time, we will take any statements from any member of the public, or any of you for that fact, that might speak either for continued participation in school choice or speaking against participation in the school choice program. Generally in the past, this has not been a long or protracted process. There has been minimal input, but this allows us to comply with the statute. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, to provide information to the public and provide information to you.
I think a lot of the questions aren't necessarily going to pertain to our participation in general, but more to the specifics of the financial implications of participating in school choice, and the process that you go through to determine how many spaces are available and at which grade level. So
Sure.
I think the participation, for my part, obviously everyone's welcome to make comments, is appropriate, but I think the questions we have at this stage are going to be more of those logistical and financial questions.
So you can actually, if there are no formal questions from the public, you can actually close the public hearing, and then I will make my presentation to you on my recommendation for school choice next year.
Got it. Yeah, there is one question in the Airtable, but again, I believe it's pertaining really to the logistics of how we participate, not whether we participate. So, do we need to make a motion to participate, or do we just close now that we've provided that opportunity?
I would just close the hearing, because unless you so decide not to participate, it is assumed that we will be participating.
Okay, great. Anybody waving at me to the contrary? Seeing none, refreshing and seeing none. Then I will make a motion to close the public hearing, and then we will have the follow-up discussion. Do you have a second?
Second.
And vote is to Chris.
Aye.
Alicia.
Aye.
Chen.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Valerie.
Aye.
Catherine.
Aye.
And I, so that is unanimous. Sorry for a little bit of the administrivia there. I'd never done one of these before, so thank you for guiding me on that one, Bill. So on to the general discussion.
Well, I will be submitting, as I do each year, to the Department of Education, the approval of school choice students, if you so approve my recommendation. I am recommending that we have 12 school choice openings next year. 2 openings in grade 1 at the Robinson, 2 openings in grade 2 at the Robinson, 2 openings in grade 3 at the Day, 2 openings in grade 5 at the Day, 2 openings in grade 6 at the Blanchard, and 2 openings in grade 7 at the Stony Brook. What we are finding this year is at the end of this year, we will be losing 11 students from our school system. 11 current school choice students will be graduating from Westford Academy. I have based the openings and the schools and the grade levels on our conversations, several conversations with the principals over the last month and a half. As you know, we've set a guideline in the past of about 75 school choice students, not to exceed 75. We're at 64 right now. And by opening up 12 seats, that will bring us to 65 students next year. It's difficult at the present time to reach the number of 75 school choice students, because if you recall this year, we engaged in a reduction in force to trim our elementary staff down in a commensurate manner with the enrollment decline. And so we cut a number of teachers. And so the consequence of that was that the class sizes have elevated somewhat over the last year. And so we have classes that are now more consistently in the 20 to 21 and sometimes 22 range instead of 18 or 19 or 20. And so that has limited our capacity to accept more school choice students. Now, with the number of 65 students, we anticipate a revenue of about $395,000, although it will in all likelihood be greater than that because of the additional school choice payments that are made for children who are receiving special education services. At the present time, we expect just about $129,000 for this year. We're kind of projecting $129,000. We made $129,000 for last year. We're projecting $129,000 additional to cover some of the costs of special education services and even one outside placement. And so we do receive that from the state. That is determined by a very detailed spreadsheet that Courtney Moran completes and submits to the Department of Education. Those of you who were watching my School Finance 101 might remember I had a screenshot of that particular form that is filled out. It has specific rates for types of services. And so our students are entered based on the amount of time they spend and the nature of the service, whether it's internal, in-house, that is, or whether it's an outside placement. And so that is all determined, that reimbursement, by the state. Now, naturally, we try to collect as much money as possible and be as precise as possible in terms of reporting any school choice students that are receiving special education services. It's certainly in our best interest to do that, and we do in fact do that. So my recommendation is for 12 openings, the 12 openings that I listed. That will allow us to have 65 school choice students for next year. It basically will be impossible at this point in time to provide any more openings, particularly at the elementary level. We have not, in the last 15 or 20 years, we have not accepted any school choice students at the high school level. We did a number of years ago. It did not work out well. And so we have decided over many, many years, I have not recommended any school choice openings to you. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you or members of the public might have.
So just as a clarification, if I followed, so 11 school choice students will be graduating this year. We'll be adding 12, so we'll be, I guess, gaining one, but holding it essentially the same level of school choice students. We'll just be adding them at the lower grades. And then once they're added to our system, they're grandfathered in and they stay with us for the duration.
That's correct.
The other question, I know some of the questions, and this pertains to one of the Airtable ones as well, is how school choice dovetails with staff non-resident students versus staff school choice students. And I appreciate that you provided that information on the second page, I think it is helpful to understand that there are two types of non-resident students that we have in Westford. Some are school choice, and those students may have no other connection or relation to the Westford community. And then, of course, there are children of staff members who may be coming from outside of Westford, and as part of their contractual benefit, those staff members are able to have their children come to school in the Westford school system. But I know some are listed as staff school choice, and that's because we put them into the lottery, correct?
That's correct. As long as they reside in Massachusetts, keeping in mind that school choice only pertains to students who reside within the confines of Massachusetts and not out of state. So where possible, we place the students who live in Massachusetts, who attend our school system under school choice and are a child of a staff member. We make every effort to place them in the school choice program so that we can collect some revenue for them.
And sometimes when they enter the lottery, they are picked, and that's why they're listed here as staff school choice. And sometimes they are not, but of course they're still eligible to come and be educated here in Westford, and those are the staff non-tuitions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think that does answer one of, we got two questions from Heather Fitzpatrick from the Finance Committee. She was asking, do the teacher children that aren't part of the program get entered in the lottery? And yes, they do. And they are able to attend Westford Public Schools either way. It's just sometimes they're selected, sometimes they aren't. And the other question is, and I guess this would go along with space and availability of room at the elementary level. Are there plans for a space utilization study?
Yes, I think one of the things that Dr. Chu will want to engage in is an update of our space utilization study that we conducted several years ago. We continue to have declining enrollment at the elementary level. We have not, as you know, chosen to close any schools at this point in time. I understand from talking with someone today that there is a larger scale development that is before the planning board. I'm going to check that out this week. We want to be careful, but the space capacity study needs to be updated at the present time.
Now opening the floor for other school committee questions, because I'm sure we have some. Chris.
Okay, I'm going to unmute and then I'm going to reshare that what I was just sharing. Sorry. So I had a couple questions pertaining to this overlap of staff choice and the other non-tuition staff students. So my first thought was, well, you know, if we have a cap at 75, but, you know, looking at this breakdown, we're really at 64, you know, couldn't you just accept more staff students under school choice? But correct me if I'm wrong, the answer to that is the risk is that because it's a lottery, we can't guarantee the percentage of staff students that would get picked in the lottery. So it's a little bit of an unknown that we might, if we want to guarantee all the staff that they can have their students in either way, we could end up with 75 students lotteried in and none of those are staff. And then we're adding the additional 80 staff students on top of that. Did that make sense? Does that describe why we don't have more staff under school choice?
Well, a lot of them are out of state, keep in mind, but also we don't have that many openings. What this cannot be, according to the school choice statute, is it can't be a rolling admission. That's why each year at this time, I have to specify to you the number of openings at each respective grade level at each school that we have chosen to select. What I cannot do is now all of a sudden submit a letter to the DESE saying we're going to have 12 school choice openings at the following schools and grade levels, and then have a report that provides 30 school choice students by incorporating some of the other staff members. I have to pretty much stick, Chris, with what I have reported to the state.
Okay. And so it may be more of a factor of the available openings at each individual grade level, matching up with where staff students are coming in. So yeah, that answers that question
That's
for
correct.
me. I guess the other question is how the interplay of number of total non-tuition staff, so the right column here, works with the number of school choice slots that we open up. So I presume that you're looking at both. So when you say, you're recommending a certain number, whether it's 75 or, this year an additional 12, you're factoring in, obviously you're factoring in availability at every section, every grade level anyway. So I guess those numbers work out anyway. I think I was thinking of total numbers a little bit, and I think you're right to remind me that it's really each grade level in each school that dictates the availability, and that the total numbers, especially with staff students, a lot of these students have been here for many years, right? And once somebody's in, they're in. So sometimes looking at those totals don't tell you the full picture of why the availability is what it is, I think is
And part of the
point I was trying to get to and what you're saying.
Yeah, part of the regulations, and they're fairly lengthy, state that at any point during the year, you just can't randomly or arbitrarily add a student or more, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to school choice roles if it hasn't been specified in the letter that I'm required to send to them.
So I think this is another clarifying question on that from Christina Green, also at FinCom. Can current staff students who are not in school choice be re-entered into the lottery where there are openings? So if a student was already attending Westford Public Schools in the 3rd grade as non-resident tuition, and then there was a 4th grade opening, can that student be entered into the lottery?
Yeah, yes, they can.
And they would be if there was an
Yes.
opening there. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you for the point of clarification. Just trying to keep all the categories straight. I think I saw a hand from Ming Chen.
Yeah, thanks. For the staff non-tuition school choice, do we know how many are out of state, how many are in state?
For school choice, Ming Chen?
No, the staff non-resident, not the school choice one.
There are, I don't have the exact number of out of state children from the staff. I can certainly provide that to you easily enough, but of those children of staff members who are not school choice participants, we can have that number quite quickly for you.
Valerie.
Can you, I mean, one thing that you touched on this, so thank you for that, because when I looked at this, my first thought was, why not add at WA where we're projected to decrease almost 100 students. So can you talk a little bit about that history? Was it behavioral? Is it like, what didn't work out that you're referring to?
Yeah, so it was mostly behavioral, Valerie. From our experience, we had students whose parents were applying for admittance to Westford Academy, admission to Westford Academy under the school choice program, because they had disciplinary problems in their own home district. Now, not all of them were disciplinary issues, but a significant number. And so we had to spend a lot of resources and time working with students in past years. And that's why about the last 15 to 20 years, I have not recommended. In fact, I checked with Mr. Antonelli again this year, and he said, you know what, please, absolutely no school choice students, because we did not have a good experience.
I had another question about when you pick the grade levels. When I look at the breakdown of day sections, the sections at day school, it looked like grades 4 and 5 had the lower averages. I guess I was just wondering if day school grade 3, which to me had a higher average than the other ones, was correct or a typo at all.
No, that's what Principal Chris Sardella submitted to me, and I
Okay,
did speak with him, and he did focus on grades 3 and 5, Valerie.
okay. Just trying to understand the
Mhm.
thought process. Thank you. Sorry, and one last question was, I mean, I feel like I'm just trying to understand school choice as a program more so because of the budget conversations we had this year, right? Of bridging that gap, and obviously school choice comes up as sort of a revenue, right, source. So is there a way to like preserve privacy, but also give sort of a breakdown of how much in services these students are costing in services versus what the state is giving us?
I'd have to review that with Courtney. I'm sure that based on the claims that are submitted, those are the costs that are borne by the Westford Public Schools in working with students, either in-house or in an outside placement. The state has specific rates at which they reimburse, and so it may not necessarily match the cost to our system. But I'll double check that with Courtney to see what type of differential there might be.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Catherine?
Again, I'm probably trying to get my head around this. I'm just curious, based on the 12 openings, do we is there already an existing wait list? I mean, do we feel that these 12 openings will be filled?
No, there's no wait list, Catherine. This is a, sort of a discrete and new process every year. We do have, I will tell you, we do have some parents who were not able to enroll their child as a result of the lottery last year that will apply again this year if their child is in one of these grade levels. But there is no waiting list that exists.
You anticipate, though, that we'll fill those 12 positions based on previous years?
Oh, I believe so. I feel very confident that we will fill them. It's a very desirable school system, and in the past we've had no problem filling the openings.
Since this did come up as part of our budget discussions, can you review for us just at a high level in terms of what is currently in the school choice revolving account, what is forecasted to be expended as part of FY21, and then what we've budgeted for FY22, just so we can have an understanding of if this is the plan we go with and the 12 openings we advertise for and fill kind of, and I know there's give depending on the amount of services that are needed for various students, but what would be the kind of forecast of where school choice would end at the end of next fiscal year?
And it's somewhat, I will say this, it is somewhat of a moving target. And here's the reason. At the end of every fiscal year, if we have some monies left over in the general fund, we can take those charges that we have made against school choice in that fiscal year and charge them against the general fund, thereby replenishing school choice. At the present time, correct me if I'm wrong, Gene, we have about $1 million in school choice funds. Now, keeping in mind that we had anticipated to use about 600,000 this year, we are anticipating using some additional school choice funds. Let me get my graph here. I think it's about 300,000, if I recall, for fiscal 22. But with the revenues, and I'll give you a complete breakdown at the next meeting if you'd like, just as an update. With the revenues that we're expecting, I anticipate that at the end of fiscal 2022, we should be at least about $800,000 to $900,000, unless there are some uncertainties that come into play. Okay, and that's the amount that we generally try to carry, upwards close to $1 million as a hedge against anything that happens, because that is the only source of funding that is available in the school system that is above and beyond that small amount that's in the Finance Committee Reserve Fund. So we'll be glad to give you an updated projection of school choice for the end of this year and going through fiscal 22. You can have that at your very next meeting if you'd like.
In our discussion earlier, Bill and I mentioned we have so much money coming in for COVID for this year and for next year. And obviously we have to spend those funds. So we'll spend those before we'll supplement with any of the school choice funds to cover any additional costs that we might have. And he said that, so that's always going to be the last piece of the funding that we'll use to cover whatever we need.
Yeah.
So we can hang on to, right now it's 1,083,000 is in that account today. And we still will have 2 more months worth of payment, including the additional for the sped increment that we'll be getting.
And the precise amount that we have used to make the 2022 budget, fiscal 2022 budget work is $345,568 in school choice monies.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And yeah, any updates as we're going forward, I think are helpful for that. I know we discussed those school choice funds as part of making the FY22 budget work. So it's just helpful to be able to keep an eye on that. I know we've been very fortunate this year to have the COVID funding that we couldn't have possibly foreseen would come through to supplement our budget this year, and that has been extremely helpful in paying for all of the necessary leave of absences and PPE and other necessary equipment to make this school year work. So thank you for that clarification and any updates along the way. I think it helps to be able
we'll be glad to give you that update, because in past joint FinCom and Select Board meetings, it has always been talked about in terms of the importance of maintaining the health of the school choice and circuit breaker accounts, because those are 2 very important sources of money to leverage our position of stability from one year to the next, both from a programmatic standpoint and from a fiscal standpoint. So we try to do that, as to the greatest extent possible. And we'll be very glad to provide you with that information.
Yeah, I think it's also just helpful for the public to understand that process, so that they do understand that participation in school choice is advantageous to the school system and to the fiscal health of the school budget on an ongoing basis. So I think that is helpful to understand. Other questions, concerns about this? Seeing none, and I'll give the Airtable one more refresh. Seeing none there. Are we ready for a motion to approve? Then I'll put that motion on the floor. I will make the motion that we accept administration's recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. Is anybody else hearing me twice? I'm hearing me twice. Hopefully you're all hearing me once. Sorry, I'll make the motion again. Motion to accept administration's recommendation for school choice for the FY 21-22 school year with 12 openings as indicated in the memorandum in our packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. And I think I'm just happening once again. I'm no longer in stereo. Great. So vote is to Chris.
Aye.
Alicia.
Aye.
Ming Chen.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Valerie.
Aye.
Catherine.
Aye.
And aye. That would be unanimous. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And next up would be a COVID update.
Well, prior to Principal Antonelli talking to you about graduation and the prom, I do want to convey some, certainly some encouraging news, and that is the numbers in terms of positive cases and close contacts are on the way down. In the town itself, just a few weeks ago, we were up to about 87 cases, positive cases of COVID. We are now down to 33 in the entire town since the beginning of the month of May. Now we're only 10 days in, I understand, but these numbers are relatively small. We have 5 positive cases, all students, and 6 close contacts, all students also. All of the numbers across Westford and across the state are trending downward. The hospitalizations, the incidence rate per 100,000 is down. The number of cases in children from birth to age 19 is settling downward. That was growing fairly quickly for a while, but that is now because I think of the number of vaccinations is finally beginning to decline. So the numbers are all positive. A lot of the information is on our COVID website, and I would encourage people to visit it. There's also a very interesting graphic on our website also. I'm just going to hold this up for a minute. Choosing safer activities. You will find this on our website. It's for sort of outside and inside activities and the types of activities where it is most appropriate to wear a mask and where it is safe, reasonably safe to be unmasked. Okay, and so I would encourage you to take a look at that. It's quite an interesting graphic and quite helpful. So prior to Jim Antonelli mentioning information on the prom and graduation, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them on the COVID numbers.
Love hearing good news on COVID numbers. Again, please everybody continue to stay safe because we're not out of the woods yet. Any questions before we go on to Principal Antonelli? Nobody's waving. Okay. Principal Antonelli, you're up.
Good evening. And welcome, Catherine. Congratulations. Nice to meet you. Well, I'm just going to say that, first of all, it's been an amazing couple of weeks. I am so impressed by our students as we came back on April 26th. They're just doing a great job, as well as Bill saw this morning with our teachers. And I know everybody continues to get a little bit more weary as the weeks go on. But when you walk around the building today and you see teachers embracing the students that are in the classrooms and the RLA students, it's amazing. There was so many different configurations today about the way teachers set up their classrooms to make it work for them and for the students. So we're seeing great things and we're excited to finish strong. As far as the prom goes, I mentioned this a little ways back to you folks about taking a look at what we could do with our very special place, which is Kimball's in Westford. And when I mentioned this to my colleagues in the Dual County League, that we were thinking about doing 3, maybe 4 different nights based on a number of students, they thought we were completely out of our minds. But you know how I've shared all year with you is that we would do 10 different proms if we had to for these kids in Westford. That's how strongly we feel as an administration. So right now, working with the guidelines from the state and working with the guidelines from Kimball's, because they certainly don't want any liability on their end, we have May 25th, May 26th, and May 27th as the designated dates. We have anywhere upwards to 150 students because that's what you can have outside. They handle all of the food. We do have a DJ, and we have ordered 4 different dance floors for the students for the 3 different nights in order to make this work. Students will have to be masked up except for when they're eating. And a notice just went out before the weekend in regards to which evening the students can attend. And this was a huge and daunting task that was taken on by Betsy Murphy, who is the Senior Dean of Students. Amazing job that she has done, and our 2 class advisors, Patty Lonergan and Sherry Fisher. Yeoman's work. And we know that not everybody's going to be happy, but so far fingers crossed, so good. You know, we have to struggle and juggle MCAS exams right now, AP exams right now, making sure that some students can be at the same prom as other students based on, you know, past behaviors or just personality things. So there's been so many wrinkles, but they're really working hard to make sure that we can pull off these proms for those nights. We're really excited about it. And so, you know, we've got everything in place. We're still working out some of the details with Kimball's to make sure everything is safe. We'll have pictures before the prom, not at the Common, which I wish we could, because that's one of my favorite things, one of our favorite traditions. Hopefully back there next year, but we will have pictures at Westford Academy on the track and field area where students can come up and show off their beautiful gowns and handsome tuxedos and have the opportunity to be together, albeit smaller groups, safer groups, and just a wonderful opportunity for a celebration. I know Mr. Ware had the opportunity to celebrate with his class on Friday night. He did a little something similar to what we did several weeks ago for the seniors, just a little festival outside, 100 students at a time, hot dogs and hamburgers and veggie burgers for students, and they had games and such. And the junior cotillion is going to be postponed until the fall, and that's been discussed with the junior officers and the junior advisors, and they bought into that very much so, because they too are very focused on the seniors, so, and making sure that the seniors have the finish that we're looking for. So I'm happy to pause there and answer any questions in regards to the prom before I head on to the specifics in graduation.
Thank you for the huge administrative effort that is going into making this possible for these students. And I know it must be hard for the juniors to wait till fall, but hopefully that wait means that they can all be together and don't have to be spread over multiple nights. So we'll cross our fingers for that. But doing this on multiple nights and making it possible for the seniors, I mean, that's just magical. So thank you to you and Dean Murphy and the class advisors for making it possible. Any questions on the prom arrangements before we go on to graduation?
Sure.
Chris.
I have one. Do our proms have themes? And are we having 3 separate themes?
You know what, Chris, we often use Dancing Under the Stars, because one of Miss Murphy's favorite thing to do is to get the students dancing out in the grass under the stars. So it's Dancing to the Moonlight is normally what we do. And so there's going to be 3 nights of Dancing to the Moonlight. We'll be sick of that song by the end, but that's okay.
Very good.
Other than that, it is just, if you get a chance and you want to come by to see these beautiful young ladies, young people, you know, in tuxedos and dresses and gowns and such, hitting golf balls, getting into bumper boats, playing miniature golf, eating a cheeseburger and corn on the cob. I mean, we're so blessed again. And I think some of my colleagues wanted to call and try and take some of our nights, and we said, don't even try, because Westford Academy's got those 3 nights cornered. So.
Excellent,
So
thank you.
moving on to graduation. If you recall, last year we used the entire field, and we used 6 foot of spacing when we did the August 7th graduation, which we're so blessed that we were able to pull that off. The backup date happened to be August 19th, was a deluge of rain that day. I'm not sure if you remember, but I certainly do. I was sweating that one. Anyway, we're going to look towards keeping more towards the 6 foot spacing, even though it says 3 foot spacing. So we're going to really stay with the same footprint that we used last August to be safe. Ceremonies have to be kept as brief as possible. So Mr. Antonelli's remarks are going to be much shorter this year than they've been in the past. The students will be clapping about that. No food or drink. I think water would be permissible if it's a hot day, individual water bottles. No communal gathering or reception before or after the commencement. Attendance is limited to faculty, administrators, speakers, and their guests, and they only can have up to 6 guests. And so we will register guests, and we will have people at the door like we did last year, making sure that those guests are the only one coming in. And we have to register those guests ahead of time. So that's our plan right now. I just got in touch with it's the deputy chief right now, Ronald Palaskis, who's going to come over and meet with me, because we do have the amenities building project that's well underway, and we have some construction fencing up. So we're going to have to negotiate and navigate through a different entrance, which is okay. We can do it. The owner of the company has been fantastic, and CDL, and he's just going to work with us in an amazing way to make sure that we can pull off this graduation to the best of our ability. So we feel like we've got a lot of ducks in a row. We didn't do a rehearsal last year. If you recall, I did a video. I was looking for an Emmy Award. I didn't get it, but this year I'll be looking to do a in-person rehearsal and also a barbecue with the seniors to try and, again, get things as normal as possible for these seniors before they leave. I've said it before, it's not how we start, it's going to be how we finish, and I'm passionate, and so is Miss Murphy and the rest of the administration, the teachers, about getting a really great finish for these students. So my thoughts and prayers are all about keeping this moving forward, keeping this moving in the right direction, minimizing any cases right now, and getting us to the finish line. We are in the red zone. If you know about football terminology, we're in the red zone, and we want to get into the end zone and score that touchdown for these seniors. So I'd also like to just add one additional thing. I'll wait to see if you have any questions regarding graduation, but I do have to put a huge plug out for the last night committee.
Absolutely. Any questions on graduation? Alicia?
Just a quick logistical one. It all sounds fantastic. Are you still only having the deans do the handing out of the diplomas this year for the contact tracing and the limiting the exposure?
Yes, great question. My plan is I do want to get you folks closer this year, and with it being a little bit tighter on the field, we can negotiate that space, but I'm probably going to move students down to anywhere between 4 and 5 feet, maybe I don't know. So we're going to negotiate that. It's just so everybody feels safe out in the field. But I do want to get you guys closer. But I will ask that we have the deans hand out the diploma covers again this year, unless there's a special presentation. I always honor those. If somebody wants to, a former school committee member wants to come up and share that with their student, I'm happy to oblige.
Honestly, whatever you need from us is fine. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world to do every year, but whatever you need from us is fine. I also assume that part of the limitations on how many guests they can have is that can facilitate contact tracing too, should there, on the rare, it's not even going to happen, but on the off chance that there needed to be tracking, that they will be required to register their guests for contact tracing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I think we might have a committee member or two who might have a special request to make. But we certainly understand and want to keep everything moving smoothly and running well, and keeping everybody safe is obviously first importance. Any other questions about graduation logistics? Okay, last night update. What's last night managed to pull out of their magic hat?
Well, I will tell you that Cindy McKeon is an amazing person with energy beyond belief, and she's got a great committee. I meet with them on Wednesday nights for a couple of hours just in preparation for this. She has outlined a plan for last night. As you know, graduation is either on Friday, June 4th at 5:30, or we've shifted the times in order to accommodate last night. For our postponement, if we get a rain delay, would be Saturday at 11 or Sunday at 11 for graduation. The over-under for graduation should be about 2 hours. It is more students this year. It's 440 graduates. So with the shorter speeches and some of the things that are pre-recorded, we should be in good shape. That being said, the last night committee has met. They have refreshments and games. They have a magic show. So from 4 to 7, they're looking at a group of activities in the backfields. Everything is outside. Jeff Stevens has been apprised of this and has a plan in front of him. So this has not been approved yet. This is all in early stages for his approval. He's going to bring it to the Board of Health. Then we have an entertainment magician and a mentalist from 7 to 9 on the athletic field, utilizing the seats that are already there from graduation and the stage. So we're going to make the best of that setup. And then prize distribution. They've got almost 150 to 170 prizes. And I'm sure, knowing this group, they'll have 250 prizes. for this group before they leave. I won't be surprised if everybody gets something again this year, because they often buy gift certificates for students and give those out as well. So, and Kimball's is donating ice cream, so every student will get an ice cream. We've got chicken tenders from a local organization, Paul's Diner, actually, chicken tenders, French fries. There's going to be a Sal's Pizza truck. So all these things are coming together to make it a special night. Everything's being sanitized in between. So many in what's happened out there. And if you look in the back field, we've got ball field fences that are out there, and we're going to actually use those to separate students and keep a certain number of students in locations. One of the things last night does is they do a beautiful video of all the students when they were growing up, and then other images. So that's also going to be on the field. So again, tremendous amount of work to do all the right things for these kids, these students. I don't want to call them kids anymore. They're young adults moving on to their next adventure. And so we're excited, but we just need to make sure that we're doing everything right. We're staying within the guidelines, that Jeff feels good. And I always have something up my sleeve if we need to adjust things. The word this year, Carrie? Pivot.
Pivot.
Pivot. She's not fond of that word anymore, but I still need to use it. So that's what we do. We will pivot if we need to.
Fantastic. Kudos to Cindy McKean and the whole last night team. It's an amazing group. For those of you who've never volunteered for last night before, whether it's this year or in a future year, it's a fantastic event, and I always enjoy volunteering at it. And any questions about last night? Okay. Thank you so much for all the updates, Jim, and thanks for all the hard work. Please convey that down the line to everybody who's putting in the legwork to make all these events possible.
I will do that. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the support. And we will keep Superintendent Olson informed if there's any changes. So he'll alert you.
Great. Thank you so much. Moving on. Anything else on a COVID update, Bill, or are we on to summer program?
No, we're on to the summer program.
Okay. Dr. Cleary, your turn.
Okay, I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Okay. Oops. There we go. Can you see this okay? Great. Well, you've heard me mention multiple times that we were planning some summer opportunity with the focus on math and literacy for our elementary students, given the fact that we've had the year we've had. Some of those foundational skills we know were not able to be taught to the same level that they typically are in a given year, of course. So I just want to share with you what we have come up with. Our goal is to provide supplemental support to students who are slightly behind grade level expectations in the targeted skills and concepts that we've identified for both literacy and math. So our vision is that with this added boost, these students are more likely to enter next school year with the key prerequisite skills needed to better access and be successful at the grade level curriculum. So in this case, we are actually focusing on the students who are just slightly lower than grade level, and hoping that the added tutoring support will backfill some of those areas that are needed, so that when they enter school in September, they will be able to move right along with the curriculum. So in terms of some logistics, the students who are eligible and accept, this is entirely optional for the eligible students, they'll receive a 30-minute tutoring session 3 times a week for 5 weeks. And the weeks start July 13th and they end on August 12th. These live sessions are going to be conducted remotely. And it's actually less due to COVID in terms of the remote piece, and more based on our experience this school year. And we know that In terms of school, the live time with teachers in school does not compare to some of the synchronous and asynchronous instruction. However, we had our reading intervention and math intervention support take place remotely during students' asynchronous weeks at the elementary level. So that was the live time that they had, even on the weeks where they were not live during the day with any teacher. And what we found was that these sessions were efficient. The staff members who were conducting them really leveraged the opportunity to use the technology in a way that we were able to see and identify growth in the students who were participating. So we also think, where it's done remotely, we're not taking away from the summer break that so many students need after the rather exhausting year that they've had. So logging on for 30 minutes is very different, and having, you know, targeted intervention is very different than getting in the car, leaving your friends or leaving the beach to go in to get some tutoring and then have to, you know, be picked up and drive home, which is kind of a bigger ordeal. And this is an opportunity in a way and an example of how COVID has opened our eyes to be able to be more efficient. So we don't feel like we're, for the goal of this program, Bridge to Success, we don't feel like we're compromising anything in this case by doing it remotely based on our experience throughout this year. So going down to the third bullet, students will be placed in a small group depending on the age level and the needs. It might be a group of 2 and no bigger than a group of 5 students. And that same cohort of students that will be by grade level, so 3rd grade students, for example, will be with other 3rd grade students. They will progress through the Bridge to Success program together with the same instructor throughout those 5 weeks at their consistent and designated time each week. We are going to have training for the Bridge to Success tutors. So we've already actually gone through the hiring process, and I'm pleased to share that all of our tutors are in-house. If we didn't have enough people sign up, we would have to post beyond, but we were thrilled to have people who understand Westford and some of our assessing and our programming. So we were very pleased to get the staffing that we needed in-house. And lastly, eligibility for students will be determined by kind of an initial screener that we're doing, and then the information from that screener in looking at who's within 1 year below grade level or less will go to the classroom teachers and other staff, and we will get some feedback from staff if there's any outliers where somebody may have scored poorly, but the staff member or the teacher says that this child is, you know, not showing any struggles. Then we're going to talk about why there's a discrepancy, and perhaps it was just a bad day of testing, which certainly we know happens during the assessment. Focusing in more specifically in terms of literacy, when we're talking about reading, there are so many different components to reading, and we really want this to be targeted and strategic intervention. So we looked at what research says is the most predictive measure or skill for future reading success, and that is oral reading fluency. So at the kindergarten level, we're looking specifically, because they aren't reading fluently yet, at alphabetic principles and correct letter sounds. So understanding that letters represent sounds and the ability to blend. So in terms of the cutoff score, this is an example. Kindergarten students on the assessment for this area would be scoring 28 if they were on grade level. So we're looking at those who are scoring between 20 and 27. Once students are in 1st grade, then they're able to read, and we're focusing on reading fluency at this point. and we're doing the same type of thing. We are assessing, and it's a normed assessment. It's something that in literacy we do routinely anyway, and have found that the information is incredibly valuable. So in this case, the benchmark for grade 3 is at 86 words per minute. So we are targeting initially the students who are between 68 and 85 words per minute. So I just share this information to show you how we're looking to use quantitative information first, and then we'll shift it over to the qualitative to make sure that from the classroom teacher or literacy specialist point of view or reading interventionist, that this seems to match what they know. And as I mentioned, there's so much to reading. Comprehension, for example, is a major area of reading that, of course, we work on with students, and some students struggle. But as I said, we know that the oral reading fluency is a predictor, and oral reading fluency has a 0.9 correlation with comprehension. 1.0 is a perfect correlation, and this is up there with 0.9. So we know that this can have significant impact on comprehension as well. So moving on to mathematics, we were very excited to use some of our COVID funds to purchase a universal screener, which many districts have, and I will say it is requested year after year to me, and it's not anything that I have been able to move forward with, because in these online assessments, it's not a one-time purchase. It's a subscription that is typically annual and can be very pricey. But for the sake of using it from the COVID funds, we looked at that as a great purchase, because we do understand that we are going to, and have been working on, what standards and what skills and what expectations we have to focus on next year, because 4th grade students entering 5th grade will not be typical in terms of everything that they have mastered. So we've gone through to focus on the priority standards, and we're very strategic about those. But this, it's called iReady, this universal screener will provide the data that will help guide those discussions moving forward and making curriculum decisions, because what we don't want to do is assume that students will have to learn a year and a half's worth of content and skills in a 1-year time. So we're kind of recalibrating what needs to be done for next year. So looking at mathematics, we focused on the foundations of number sense, which broken down a little bit further, it's numbers and operations and algebraic thinking. And all students have taken I think we've finished the iReady screeners. Now we're going to take a look. These are 4 different students listed here, and we're focusing on students who, this is a 5th grade sample. So the 4 students are all in 5th grade, and you can see based on their performance, these 3 up top are performing at a 4th grade level. And we're going to prioritize the 1st and 2nd student in this small sample of 4, because they're performing at a 4th grade level in both numbers and operations, which is that first shaded column, as well as algebraic thinking. So we just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of the type of data that we are looking at. So that's just kind of an overview of the exciting things that we have coming. And I do think that this is something that could very well be replicated in future years and always adapted as we reflect. But we are thrilled to provide this opportunity to elementary students. We do have, if we look at group sizes of about 4, we are able to service up to about 288 elementary students this summer. So we feel like that's quite a lot of students who would be able to participate. So at this point, I'll take any questions.
I I guess I've got a couple of foundational questions. I'm sure there may be more from the committee, but how does this program differ from what we typically refer to as the summer school program?
So and Courtney will be able to speak to this further. The ESY program is based on students who are on IEPs whose their IEP team have determined that they would show significant regression by taking a almost 2-month pause in the school year and therefore need additional special education support during the summertime in order to not regress. This program that I'm referring to may or may not have special education students, but it's targeting the students who are slightly below grade level and certainly would not qualify for the extended school year, which would be a different population due to a different set of needs.
And the other foundational question is, how is this being paid for?
Well, this is the very exciting thing about these. I think it was Valerie talking about the various buckets of money that we're getting for relief from the state and federal levels. This is something that we are targeting to use ESSER 3 to fund. We did hear from the governor that there's 2 Fridays ago, that there's additional funding that will be specifically for summer programs. And he did share that information very publicly, but we still don't have a whole lot of detail around what those funds entail and how much and what any restrictions are. So that could be shifted to there. But the funding at this point, from what we know we have, would be out of the ESSER 3 funds.
And this question is actually coming up several times in the Airtable. How would this work for students who need to be in summer childcare all day, children of working parents? How will this work with their program? Will they be able to participate? What happens if they can't participate? Do we have any experience with how that worked with students who might have been in childcare during their asynchronous weeks, but we're working with an interventionist? So do we have any experience with that and how that's worked with our community childcare partners? How would that work?
That's something we'll have to, once we identify the students and reach out to parents, we do have something that will go to individual parents to say, is this something that you were interested in participating in? The other piece of the remote is that we do hope it lends itself so that if students are not at home with a family member who's able to watch them and then their device right there readily available, that it's easier to find some way to hop on for the 30 minutes than to get transportation from somewhere. So we'll just have to work with families, and the schedule may not work for some families and they may decline. So there's nothing that's required about any of this, and we will do what we can. In the survey that we have drafted to go out to families as to whether or not they want to accept a placement, we also have in there, do you need a device? And some of our younger students are in fact returning devices, but they would just then be able to keep their device over the summer if that can offer any help. So we'll work with, daycares or child cares in the town as well to see if there's any way that we can make things easier for people.
How would parents get notified of the results, and what's the kind of timetable for that?
Right, so we just finished assessing and both literacy and math. We might have a couple of classes that still need to finish up, but My hope is within the next 2 weeks, we will have a letter going out to eligible families with how to let us know. There'll be a form attached. I won't use the word survey. We'll use a form that asks if they are interested. It will also give them a designated time and then those dates. And again, the dates are fixed. They're already there. It's those 5 weeks and it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so all of that information will be provided. And my hope is about 2 weeks. We'll get that to families.
And I know I'm being a question hog, but the Airtable's kind of lighten up. And is this program only for K-5? How would middle school or high school students be supported if they need a similar kind of help? Is there some other way that they would be supported either over the summer or next fall?
Right now, Bridge to Success is specific for K-5. We do understand that there are students who are going to need some support at all levels. Our goal for this is to focus heavily on the foundational skills that if students, if we aren't backfilling these areas, then as they build additional content and more complex skills, it will be on a weaker foundation. So we are prioritizing, just like the state has the elementary right now. Now with the additional funding, with the summer programming and all of that, we do know that there are more conversations and a broader spectrum to consider as we look at the summer and what those additional opportunities are for funding. Also, though, it's already May, and so we're a little concerned that we don't have more information if there's any expectation to get something going up and running for this summer. But much of our conversations now are how do we prepare students for the fall? So when we talk about the elementary students being hopefully on grade level if they go through this program, it's still on grade level with those skills that were priority skills, and priority skills for a reason. It's not that it will be equivalent to if they had an entire year of regular schooling with no pandemic. So all students will be coming in with some version of schooling that is different than the other. So not to panic from a parent point of view. We understand that that's everybody, not just in Westford, but obviously beyond too.
I've definitely been a question hog, but I think we addressed most of the concerns in the Airtable. If I have missed anything, please, parents should always know, especially if you have a question that pertains to your child. Your first line of information should always be your classroom teacher, your building administrator, team lead, or an interventionist you might be working with right now. Those folks are your first line and best source of information pertaining to your child. But any other questions from the committee on things I might not have hit? Valerie.
Yeah, just another one I saw in the Airtable that I thought was interesting was, will all parents be notified of the results or just the eligible, the students that are eligible?
It will be for the students who are eligible. Beyond that, we're really looking at this for curriculum decisions on what we need to do at each grade level. So we're looking at kind of more holistic trends than we are at individuals. We know many students, because it's normed under typical circumstances. So we know that many students will be falling below, and what we don't want is to cause great alarm. But if a parent is curious, certainly they can contact their teacher, but it's not anything that we're delivering. I liken it to DRAs. We use those often for determining which reading groups, how to group students, and levels are applied there, but it's different than an assessment where a student takes a test, so to speak, and then the grades are distributed at home. That's one of the just assessment tools that helps us make better decisions to make sure that we're targeting the needs of the audience in front of us.
Other questions? Chris?
Yeah, Carrie, thank you for this. I really appreciate the presentation. And I like the focus on the foundational skills. I like that you're, using evidence-based methods to evaluate. So that all sounds, really, really solid. It puts my mind at ease about some of the concerns we're having. I guess my two questions. One is, do you have a ballpark on how many students you think might become eligible for this? And then the other question was, can you talk a little bit about recruiting the tutors, what that's going to look like?
Sure. I don't yet have a ballpark with how many students. So we looked at one grade level at the Abbott School, and in that grade level, there were 22 students who fell into category 2 for an entire grade. Now, diving down more deeply, they were category 2, which is one grade level below, but some of them were a grade level below in number sense in one part, but not the other. So we're going to dive more deeply into those 22 to see if there's even a subset within that. Now, if we have more spots, we may broaden our net a little bit further to capture maybe students with one that's below grade level, even though the other area is not, and then just differentiate that way. So for one grade level at one school, there were 22. That may or may not be the trend across the way. For recruitment, we already posted internally, and we have several, and then our curriculum coordinators were scurrying throughout the district to the schools and planting seeds in the ears of people who work with students focusing on math and literacy. So we did get 12 individuals, and that was our goal. And they're either interventionists or some of them are Title I tutors. So the staffing is all set, and we're very pleased with those who have applied.
That's great. Thanks.
Sure. Catherine.
Thanks. Carrie, I just have a question, regarding, I suppose, the online aspect of this. My concern is if some kids are in the middle of camping, we don't necessarily have access to Wi-Fi. There's kind of an equity issue there. For those families that they just can't make it work, even though their child has been recognized as benefiting from the program, what kind of options are there maybe for the fall in terms of trying to catch them up, or are there any, asynchronous options that could be made available to these students?
Well, we certainly have resources that we could provide families for additional practice at home if they wish. The beauty of our intervention model, and it is one of the handful of things that separates Westford from others, is that we have adaptive technology where students can be on a program, and if they're struggling, the program scales back, it understands what they're struggling with and comes at it in a different way. But more importantly, we have human beings who are available to provide some additional support. And perhaps next school year, we have to rethink how we're using our math interventionists and our reading interventionists, and determine what students qualify, how students are entering those programs or supports, I should say, and exiting those supports. So even if we have to do a little restructuring, I feel great that we are in a position and in a district that has those opportunities. And it's added support for the tier 1, which is the classroom teacher delivering, the curriculum and adapting it and differentiating. But I think we've got a level of support that we can utilize, and now we will utilize them within the context of coming back from a pandemic. So I feel Like, we are very lucky, and our students will be in great shape having these resources at their fingertips.
Other questions? Thank you very much for all the work that's gone into this program. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us to use the CARES funds for exactly what they're designed for, which is to support our students from the impacts that have occurred, and any supports we can give them to launch them into the next school year will pay huge dividends, as our entire intervention model always has. So thank you very much for all the planning and work that's going into this. If nobody's waving anymore, and yep, I think that addressed the questions in the Airtable. So we have an update on class section sizes. And you're on mute. Always happens once.
Always happens once. I'm sorry. We met with the principals on April 27th to review the latest enrollments and what we feel a little refinement of projections if necessary. And in some of our elementary schools, we will have, as we usually do, some shifts in personnel. At the Nabnasset, for example, we'll be losing a half-time kindergarten teacher because of enrollment. We'll be adding a grade 1, but reducing a grade 2. So we basically can shift oftentimes within a school. At the middle school, we'll be reducing a grade 1 teacher. Now what happens is sometimes these teachers will find an opening in the school system. We're pleased to say that no one really, other than a half-time kindergarten teacher, no other staff will be losing their positions, keeping in mind that this year we made the large reductions in force that were more commensurate with enrollment. One of the things I want to point out is, for example, the Robinson School in grade 2 for this year, for next year, excuse me, there are 87 students projected. My original thinking was to reduce that to 4, but there's where we look 2 years out, or the next year, and we're keeping it at 5 sections because the following year, as you can see, the grade 1 classrooms for next year at the Robinson are 104 in total. And that will probably go up from these numbers. And so it makes no sense to me to reduce an excellent staff member when the next year we have to add back a staff member. So periodically at town meeting, I've had to answer a question like that from a member of the public in terms of why you didn't reduce a particular teacher. And it's because you have to look to the year after that to see if it makes sense to, if it's a continued pattern of reduction, or if it's a one-year anomaly, whether a particularly high group, a large group of students, or a particularly small group of students. So really, and no unusual patterns of increases or decreases. I'm just glad to say that it seemed to be less this year than most other years, and less complex because we're able to place people into positions and not lose them. So glad to answer any questions, but we've thoroughly reviewed this with the principals and they feel comfortable with these numbers of sections for next year.
Questions from the committee? Chris.
Bill, I assume these projected numbers include projected school choice that we talked about earlier?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Valerie?
Sorry, just for my own benefit, I guess, can you clarify again where the changes are? You mentioned one at Miller.
Yes, let me go through those, Valerie. We're losing a halftime section at the Nabnasset kindergarten. We are increasing grade 1 at the NAB by 1 staff member, but decreasing grade 2 by 1 staff member. At the Miller School, we are decreasing 1 grade 1 staff member. At the Abbott School, we're increasing grade 4 by 2 staff members and decreasing grade 5 by 1 staff member. At the day school, we are adding a 4th grade section, but reducing a 5th grade section. At the Crisafulli, we are adding a 3rd grade section. Sharon and now Scott are concerned about growing numbers. As I've mentioned before, oftentimes we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years, new families moving in with students in the grade 3 through 5 age range and grade range. So it's a number of changes at 3 through 5, more so than at K to 2.
And those those will like balance out as a net neutral, or have they been we're not advertising for those positions, right, or anything? Those will just be shuffling?
Well, if they've been filled by an interim, if an existing position has been filled by an interim, we generally will advertise, but interviews have been conducted. And for the most part, the staff has been hired and are in place for next year.
And that, can you explain that process a little bit? That's different than the reduction in force, right?
Yeah, so reduction in force is somewhat of a larger scale reduction based on fairly significant enrollment declines. Now, when you see a reduction of a section, that essentially could be equated to a reduction in force because of a decline in the enrollment in that particular grade level, and particularly if it's going to be followed by some fairly consistent lower class sizes. So anytime you have a reduction that's based on enrollment, it could be considered reduction in force. But this current year, Valerie, there were a number of teachers who were reduced because of a fairly significant decline in enrollment. We don't see that much of a decline for next year. So our projections, I think, were pretty on target.
And I know we sometimes get this question about Westford Academy, because Westford Academy, as you know, this very large bubble class is moving on and out of WA this year. Westford Academy is really reducing a number of students. I think sometimes people see that and expect that there will be a reduction of staff at Westford Academy. I guess based on my long experience at WA, to me, I'm looking at these numbers and really seeing a building that has been bursting at the seams for several years, really returning to more of a normal level of enrollment. So it doesn't feel to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like a reduction at the academy. It feels like more of a return to normalcy because we've been at such an extraordinarily high enrollment at WA with these large bubble classes moving through.
Yeah, now you broke up some because I'm getting a message saying my internet signal is unstable, so I apologize. But what I did hear is, and I agree with, is this at least allows some of the core classes to have a more manageable enrollment at the present time, because you're absolutely right. We've reached the peak of Westford Academy enrollment in the last couple of years. The important thing to keep in mind also is sometimes we look at electives and say, well, why can't we reduce this elective? Sometimes it becomes a little bit more complicated in that a teacher who teaches a number of core content courses might teach that elective. And so the situation arises of, Well, do we reduce the full-time equivalency of that staff member as a result of reducing an elective or electives and take the risk of that staff member leaving? So it's a little bit more complicated at the high school, but you're absolutely correct in that the decline in enrollment, if nothing else, is kind of a pressure valve to release some of the really some of the larger course enrollments that have taken place in the last several years.
Valerie.
Sorry, that just reminded me of something. Can you remind me, wasn't the WA like course enrollment a little delayed this year? Is there normally a
Yes.
report out or a summary for? to
Yes,
us?
I'll check with Jimmy Antonelli to see if that has been completed, because that was shifted probably by at least a month to a month and a half later this year. So I will be glad to check with Jim to see if those enrollments in respective classes are ready right now.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions on class sizes and enrollments? Okay, then we are on to new business. I know we're running a bit later than scheduled, so thanks everybody for your patience, but I appreciate all the questions and information so far. So now we're on to school handbooks, and middle schools are up first. Hi, Rick, welcome.
Rick, you're on mute.
You were all on mute a second ago, so I was trying to figure out why I couldn't hear you. So, okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Miss Clear. So the handbook so I didn't hear, was there a question just as you were making the shift? I know we're doing the handbook, but you just want the update on the middle school handbook?
Yep, just let us know what's changed and what you need from us, and we'll be willing to help you out, get you on your way.
Well, hopefully you've received the summary, and basically for the middle schools, it represented just the changes in the nomenclature that represents changes in superintendent, potential changes in the school finance director. Also, I believe HR was changed. We've also, and it's not in your notes, but we have updated Ms. Clear's spot for the new school committee member. And just that one finance number of, I believe the user's fee, the athletic fee, $280, I think it went to. I have the document here too.
Mistakenly had the handbook in twice, so it wasn't the revision summary document. But if you look at the current packet that was up this afternoon and this evening, it does kind of have those.
Right there it is. Yeah, I sent both. I sent both items over. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a great deal of information at the beginning of the handbook. It was just making some adjustments to some of the names and so forth. We felt a couple of years ago we made major adjustments. I don't believe it was last spring. You know, we made adjustments with the smoking rules, the e-cigarettes and so forth. So there wasn't really anything that we needed to make adjustments with this year. Obviously, with a different type of year, nothing really presented itself as a challenge that we needed to consider any adjustments. And we made a great deal of adjustments, again, 2 years ago with the additions of equity information and so forth and so on, dress codes and so forth and so on. So there wasn't really any other updates.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions? Valerie?
I think this applies to both middle school and high school, but I remember the like digital citizen like code of conduct sort of that we instituted, and I was just wondering if there was a discussion to like if that would be a recurring thing or if that was only for this year. or if that would become part of the handbook or.
Guess I'm not 100% sure what document you're referring to. Was it something that pertained just to this year and the use of the Chromebooks and having their own personal Chromebook?
Yeah, I think,
I only remember, go ahead.
yeah, I think Dr. Cleary might have some light shed there.
Yes, so for this year where students were participating at school from home, we worked with the WEA over the summer to come up with some criteria that we thought would be needed for that type of kind of insight into the school from the home setting with other family members potentially in the area at home. So that was specific to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Then I'll make a motion that we approve the middle school handbooks as revised per the information in our packet.
Second.
And all in favor, Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you, Rick. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you.
And next up, we've got the high school handbooks, and it looks like Dean Ware's with us.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. Very similar to Mr. Mack, the year that we had, not any changes as far as new policy and procedures. It's just all updating the new positions. I think I've been working the handbook for 10 years, and this is the first time we haven't put in a new rule or a new policy, which is, it's not a typical year. I know, Courtney, we get some Title IX language to work with. I spoke with Jim earlier. The good thing about a handbook, it's live on a Google document, and it's nothing that's published. So we can update that this week and get that back to you on the changes that you see that are needed. But it's just updating the new people and the new roles, and welcome aboard, Ms. Claire. Wish you the best. And it's very simple this year, and hopefully we can keep it that way.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a few additional Title IX updates that need to go in. What's maybe, I don't know if Courtney, you have guidance on that, or Dean Ware, should we take a vote to approve the handbooks as amended now? Should we wait and have those incorporated later and take the vote at that time? What's the best process?
So this was something that we had discussed last fall, and I think it just fell out of this version of the handbook. And I did notice it on page 59 of the middle school handbook. So what we'll do is just enter it into the high school one where it was, like I said, I think it just fell out of this version somehow.
Ah, that's right. So we already approved those policies. That's right. So we're just clerically making sure those updates make it into the document. Got it. Okay, so it sounds like we can go ahead and take the vote tonight because those changes were already approved. They just need to be clerically incorporated, and all the other changes before us are kind of similar clerical updates, names, and whatnot. So I'll put the motion on the floor again. Motion to approve the Westford Academy handbook for the 21-22 school year as indicated in our packet and per other necessary clerical updates.
Second.
And vote to Chris.
Aye.
Alicia.
Aye.
Ming Chen.
Aye.
You all keep moving on me. Sean.
Aye.
Valerie.
Aye.
Catherine.
Aye.
And aye. That is unanimous. Thanks very much, Bob. And have a good evening. Sorry if I keep messing up votes here, but you kind of all keep moving every time we bring new people on the screen. What's up next? School health services update. Hi, Joan.
Hi, how are you guys?
Okay, I think we've had an easier year than you.
It's been a long one. I want to welcome Catherine. I'm Joan Mitchell. I'm the Director of School Nurses. I'm also the nurse at Westford Academy. It has been quite a year, but I haven't been more proud of a bunch of nurses than anybody in my life. They have been troopers and team workers, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of go through the year in review of what the nurses have accomplished. Usually I do present data of all our screenings and things like that, but this year the screenings were put on hold. So I don't have numbers to present, but instead I will give you a nurse's perspective of the year we've had. Learning how to manage and monitor COVID-19 in addition to traditional responsibilities has definitely highlighted the importance and diversity of the position of the school nurse. Like so many others, learning to pivot has been challenging, but we have adapted. Our goal was to make sure schools were safe to bring students and staff back while learning and following the guidelines. We started in March. We worked diligently to be ready for when the school starts. We took information from other schools, districts, even states, even other countries. I think when we went with Bill in maybe May, and other schools in other countries had started to go back, and we took that information, put it in our pocket, and we knew it was definitely doable to go back to school, and we could do it safely. We eventually did master Google Meet, Google Docs, and Google Sheets, things that we really weren't that familiar with, but now we are very familiar with. We did constantly monitor the CDC, the Mass Department of Public Health, DESE, and incorporated the updates into the return of the school safety plan. We did attend weekly meetings, daily meetings during the summer and throughout the school year to make sure that we're updated on all the different protocols that were out there. And we did also develop a Google slide presentation. We started in the summer. We made these presentations so that they were ready to be presented to the staff, to the students, and to the parents as well. The presentations were very age appropriate. The nurses really took a great bit of time and care and to make sure that the students were comfortable with the mask wearing and how to hand wash, how to wear a mask, how to social distancing. And through these presentations, the students could learn before they went back into school on what was expected of them when they returned to school. The staff also received a different presentation, and many of them did reach out to me and say that they found it very helpful before they returned to school to get that information. The clinic looked very different. What we ended up doing is contacting the teachers. The teachers would call us with a student who needed to come to the clinic. The school nurse would either go to the classroom to see if they could help with the matter, or we would assess the student in the hallway to determine whether they would come to the clinic or whether they would go to the caring room, which were the students that had COVID symptoms, in which we had to dismiss them and go make sure that they were properly informed of the information that they needed. We did make a new nurses website and blog that was constantly updated throughout the year. And we also updated all of the healthcare forms so that parents could now go in and click a healthcare form, fill it out, and return it to us as needed. We started to begin virtual meetings for 504s and IEPs. We participated in individual COVID school committee meetings. We contributed, Bill had asked us about updating the website with the dashboard for the updated numbers, weekly numbers of the Westford school system. Those included weekly cases by close contacts and grade level. They also included the total number of weekly cases and close contacts. It also includes the Massachusetts data sheet that includes weekly average daily incidences % positive in the case count. These numbers are updated, and then Mike Lacert will make sure that the website is updated at the end of each week. To help with planning opening the schools this past summer, we participated in the Hygiene Protocols Committee, the Operations Committee, and we still continued to be part of the Superintendent's COVID Advisory Committee. We began meeting weekly, then we started 2 weeks, and now I think we've been 3 weeks since we were met, so hopefully things are going in the right direction. We've also worked very closely with the Westford Health Department. We listened to webinars every Tuesday and Friday run by the state epidemiologists and shared that information with the school staff and other nurses. We worked closely with the Westford Health Department to assist in contact tracing and communication with families and schools. When we came back to school and we had 6 feet distancing. This involved many phone calls by the school nurses. They had to make sure that all the close contacts, parents were informed, given the correct information on how to quarantine, and when they were able to return to school. I can't tell you how much time and energy this put in, and the nurses worked diligently to make sure that all the close contacts were made aware of their information that they needed. And I will say that no close contact has tested positive in the Westford Public Schools. We also volunteered through the Health Department and the Merrimack Valley Medical Reserve Corps at many flu and COVID vaccine clinics. These clinics were after school, on Saturdays, and during the school vacation weeks. We grocery shopped for the elderly. We set up and contributed to the Westford Food Pantry. We picked up and distributed PPE made by Westford residents. There was a PTO grant that was applied for and received to replace the emergency bags at day school, which were over 20 years old. Also, there was a 5-week pilot project called Girls in Real Life Situations, and that's GIRLS for grade 5 girls. It was presented at one of our elementary schools by the guidance counselor and the school nurse to help with making friends, body image, and self-esteem, and discuss concerns related to middle school. There was also Girls on the Run in the middle school level. Not only did we attend many COVID meetings, but we also remained current within our nursing field. We attended continuing education classes that include pediatric cardiac assessment, respiratory assessment, orthopedic assessment, GI assessment, dental assessment, neurological assessment, ear, nose, and throat, eye assessment, dermatology assessment. We recertified for CPR and first aid, and we did teach many teachers CPR throughout the school year. Our goal was safety, and I really think we accomplished it. I can't say enough about my nurses. They are the best team I've ever had. I also want to thank the committee and everybody in the school system. It's been a very, very busy year, and I want to thank you for all your support. And most of all, Bill, we wish you a very happy and healthy retirement. Thank you very much for all your support, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
Wow. Not sure how else to respond to that update other than wow, and thank you to you and the entire nursing staff, because this has just been a year where I think we have all come to learn how much we desperately need our nursing staff and how we have been able to rely on you this year for all of the information, support. You know, it's just quite astounding. So thank you to you, Joan, and to the entire nursing staff. Any questions from the committee? Sean.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, Sean.
Do we know how many close contacts there's been amongst the whole district, or?
It's on the website.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Can I just say that that's amazing that the amount of close contacts that we've had, right? And that there haven't been any contracted cases from it. It's just.
No, and that, and they have changed it from 6 feet to 3 feet.
Right.
And I will tell you, we still call every close contact, even though it's within 3 to 6 feet. We call the parents and we do send a letter just stating what they need to look out for, because we still feel it's important for them to know about it, even though the state says 3 feet, but we still contact them, and by phone call and by an informational email.
That is really just a testament to, all of our staff, the safety protocols that have been in place, the cooperation of families for not sending students when they weren't feeling well. It's just really been a whole community effort.
Definitely.
Quite astounding. Valerie.
Hi, Joan. Can you speak to that pilot program, the GIRLS? Is it something that you guys found valuable and would like to continue, or was it just try it once to try it out?
No, I think it was very valuable. I think 5th grade going into 6th grade, and just there was another program a couple years ago, sort of with the same goal, but I think all the the girls really enjoy it, and I think it was a pilot program. So I'm positive that they're going to try to do it again next year. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I'm sorry we were running late and kept you later than planned. So thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Joan.
extraordinary job.
Thank you, Bill. Bill, good luck.
Thank you. Did a great job, all of you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the One to World update.
Okay, we're moving on. I've got Julie Bedreau, our Director of Digital Learning, here with me. And we have been sharing along the way that we are going to be expanding our one-to-world access. And when we say one-to-world, we're saying one-to-one, meaning that every student is given a device. And we've had that for the past 4 years at Westford Academy. And we have been working hard to provide more routine access at the other levels, at the middle school and elementary levels, because we know that technology augments the curriculum to a level that can, if used correctly, increase the engagement for students and take learning to a whole new level. So that said, we are looking to expand our one-to-world beyond or starting lower than 9th grade. So I do have a few slides that I'd like to share with you. Okay. Go, and I'm going to present. So we are looking to expand one-to-world from our current grades 9 through 12 all the way, starting at 3, going all the way up through 12. So we would be adding the middle schools as well as the 3 through 5 schools starting this coming fall. And at the moment, everybody's one-to-world, right? Because of COVID, we did have students who all get assigned a specific device because they were at home times where they were learning. So as we shift back to some normal version of our school year, we're looking to shift one-to-world down to grade 3. So looking at the second bullet, it does increase the efficiency and reduces the overall number of Chromebooks that we will need in the district as we move forward in future years. The Capital Committee currently funds our 9th grade one-to-world devices each year when we purchase new devices for the incoming 9th grade class. Also through Capital, when our devices end up meeting their end of life span, it's through Capital where we purchase replacements for those computers, whether it be Chromebooks or desktops, all of our technology at the end of their life. And when they need to be purchased for new, then we go through the Capital Planning Committee. And what we know is that because we were relying on the cart model at the middle schools and at the elementaries, it ends up being a more expensive model, because once we have carts for students or for every class, then the ratio actually ends up becoming more than 1 Chromebook for every student. And this was happening at the middle school level, because a student, for example, may have a cart where they go to math class, they take a Chromebook because they're using technology in that particular lesson. And then at the end of class, they put that Chromebook back, and then they go to another class and they use that class's cart. But when a student isn't assigned an individual device, then the art teacher has their own carts for students when the students go to art, and the music teachers have their own carts for when the students go to music. So it ends up being sometimes more Chromebooks than students. So we knew that that was something that is just a byproduct of having the carts instead of having a one-to-world. And we started at the 9 through 12 to roll it out. We were thinking about going to 6th grade, and it was another byproduct of the pandemic that we learned, geez, we can go even earlier than 3rd grade, because right now all of our students are bringing Chromebooks back and forth to school, and it's going very successfully. So the more we shift to a 1-to-1 model, which is in grades 3 through 12 in this proposal, we will actually ultimately end up reducing the amount of devices that we have in the district. So it's more efficient. And just to give you an idea, that the purchases moving forward, once we reach our vision of purchasing Chromebooks for 2 grade levels instead of just for the 9th grade, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a future slide, that's about 800 devices. And as enrollment goes down, it will be less. So 800 devices would be a typical year, again, or less as enrollment goes down, that we would go to Capital to request for a Chromebook purchase every year. Now, over the past 3 years, the average number of devices that we have purchased through Capital is 864 Chromebooks. So this would, again, and that doesn't even count the Chromebooks that we got from certain grants or school-based budgets or the operating budget. So it will be more efficient in the long run. So going down to the 3rd bullet, all one-to-world devices will be within the updatable window. So Google, for the Chromebooks, we are able to update the system from when it's brand new up through 6 years old. Beyond 6 years old, they say, you know, those computers or the devices are too old and may not update when we update our system. So some programs may not be able to run. But in our plan, all students who have a 1-to-1 or 1-to-world device, the devices would always fall in that window of 0 to 6 years old. We would have regular annual purchases of new devices moving forward in 6th and 9th grade. So you see here, we're actually going grades 3 to 12 for 1-to-1, but the new devices are actually going to the 6th graders and to the 9th graders. And I see the discrepancy there, that we're starting in 3rd grade, but yet new devices are starting in 6th grade. And we're going to talk about that on the next slide. And then K-2, they will continue to have access to devices, Chromebooks on carts. And each year, that number of devices and carts will increase. So the sharing from class to class to class for a single cart will become less, and it will end up having basically 1-to-1 at the K-2, but not that the students take a particular device around the school with them and to and from school. It's access on the carts, but that will increase because of the rollout that we have. So you can see here, Julie Bedreau has done an amazing job looking at how we can distribute the devices and certainly account for them throughout the entire district and repurpose them everywhere possible. So let's just take a look at this flow chart, and we'll go all the way to the left at the high school level, grades 9 through 12. So green indicates 1-to-world. So that means each student has their own device, goes to and from school, they carry that device around. And the darker green just shows where the brand new devices will be infused. So if we just take the left-hand chunk of grades 9 through 12, you can see that all incoming 9th graders in the future, and this has been happening at the high school already, will get new devices, and they will stay with that device all the way through grade 12. Once they graduate in grade 12, we collect the devices, and they have 2 years remaining, because remember I mentioned that it's within 6 years where the operating system can continue to update and stay current. So for those remaining 2 years after the seniors graduate, they return them. And if you follow that bottom arrow, they're redistributed to the K-2s for their carts. Now, move on to the middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8. You can see, as I mentioned in the previous slide, grade 6 students will also get brand new devices. And they will carry those devices for 3 years through grades 6, 7, and 8. At the end of 8th grade, they'll turn them back in because they're going to get new devices in grade 9 off to high school. So those 8th grade devices will get turned in, and they have 3 years remaining because they've been used for 3 years, 6, 7, and 8. So they have 3 years remaining left. And those devices will be redeployed to the 3rd grade students who will have those devices for grades 3, 4, and 5. By the time those devices go through start with a 3rd grader who then graduates to 4th and then graduates to 5th, it's at the end of life for updates, but still very usable. We use them until they break down. And so at the end of 5th grade, they don't have years remaining in terms of updates, but they can still be used. And those will also be cascaded to the K-2 schools for carts. And then once they start to die and are no longer usable at the K-2, that's when they are scrapped. And we do have a program where we sell them and get a very small amount of money. So that's kind of our plan moving forward. So you can see the green, grades 3 through 12, students will have their own devices, but the new purchases will be for grade 6 and grade 9 every year. Now there's a little caveat here. This year, because of COVID and our purchase of 800 new devices this year, after the year started, because we had to provide every student with a device, now we have these 800 relatively new devices. So those 800 relatively new devices, we are going to use as the dark green for next fall, grade 6 and 9. So what you see here is our kind of general plan in moving forward. But until we've got a couple of years where we're going to execute the one-to-world in grades 3 through 12, but we're going to do it a little bit differently while we utilize the devices that we have because of the influx. So now the incremental steps. So next year, it's not going to look the exact same as the flow chart you just saw. We have, as I mentioned, the 800 devices that were purchased with COVID funds. And those we already have, and those will go to next year's 6th graders. As a matter of fact, they've already been distributed to the 5th graders this year. So those students already have it for entering 6th grade next year. And then the other 400 will go to the 9th graders next year. So we don't have a one-to-world request this year for the FY22 capital budget because we're using these 800 devices. For this year, looking at next year, students who will be entering in the fall, grades 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, are simply going to use the devices they already have and have already been given this year for COVID, for the hybrid model or RLA model. And so those students will keep those devices over the summer and bring them back, and that will be their one-to-world device for next school year. As I mentioned, looking at the 3rd bullet, we have carts that we've been using in grades, K-8, but because we're shifting to one-to-world, there will be extra carts, which are actually very pricey, the physical carts, not the devices. The carts that we have in grades 3 through 8 will be redistributed to the K-2 building. So as they get more cascaded devices, now we will have additional carts to place those devices. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie, who's just going to talk about what the plan, this is kind of a visual for what the plan will look like for this coming year, because it's a little different than our ultimate vision, because we have these 800 devices.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So this is for next year's, well, starting in the fall. And as you can see, we have the 800 in the green box, a dark green box, 800 devices, and they're going to be, you know, coming into 9th grade to freshmen and to 6th grade. And as Kerry said, the 6th graders, they already have them, the rising 5th graders already have their devices. So we've got that is as it will be in the future. However, at the elementary level, between grades 5 to 3, they'll be keeping the current devices that they have. They so they will keep them over the summer, and they will move. So students entering grades 3, 4, and 5, they will take their devices they currently have home over the summer, and they will bring them back to school. And the devices that we have at the K-2 level, we will keep there, and they will be put into carts. So there'll no longer be a one-to-one take-home program at the K-2. It will just be carts with devices in them in the classrooms.
So we wanted to provide you with that update because there are a lot of moving parts. Big picture, we're looking to go 1 to World, 3 through 12, and we're doing it in a way that is more efficient, and again, over time is going to reduce the amount of Chromebooks we have in the district, and therefore reduce the amount of Chromebooks we have to replace once they hit their 6-year deadline. And hopefully follow that.
Thank you. A lot of moving parts indeed. I really appreciated the graphics. I was very, very grateful for the graphics. That was super helpful. So questions? Valerie.
I feel like for every family who will say like, yay, you know, great, 21st century computers, this is great. There's always going to be someone who's kind of wondering like, well, we just used them all. That was too much usage. Can you kind of speak to what the plan is, especially maybe at that upper elementary grade levels, to talk about like the usage in the classrooms and what you envision there?
Sure. Well, there was way too much screen time in our current model because particularly during the asynchronous weeks, everything was online. We were on a track prior to a pandemic swooping in to find ways to thoughtfully use devices to bring the curriculum to life. There are times where students were producing work and even showing their work, and the technology allows them to manipulate it, explain it, do a voiceover so the teachers can see step by step the thinking behind the students as they're problem solving or thinking critically. So we would revert to being back on track with using technology to make the experience more robust for students, not to shift to online learning. I think we're going to have a little bit of kind of once bitten, twice shy, and people thinking, you know, let's not keep doing what you're doing in the classrooms. It's not going to be that. We've already been on this road, and I can assure families that it is not going to be like a screen time heavy experience for these learners. So it's just going to be better access. So it's not, if I'm a teacher and there's an opportunity, I don't have to say, oh, my partner teacher already signed out the Chromebook, so now this really cool lesson, either I'm just not going to do it or I've got to wait until tomorrow. It's just access at their fingertips as it's needed. But the teachers are very, very aware. And many of them came to us with concerns saying, we don't want the kids going back and forth, you know, when they're on their on weeks, even during the hybrid, can't they just keep them at home? And they preferred to try to avoid the use of technology in the classroom because they were so concerned on the other side. So teachers are aware. It's not that we're doing online learning in school. So it's really just a tool so that we can make the experience incredible for students.
Yeah,
Thank
I would
you.
just like to say that absolutely, that's just because we have the devices, they have to be used with a purpose. They have to be used in a meaningful way. And I think that's always been our vision for digital learning in Westford. And I think that's something that we have done very well. The teachers really do use it in a purposeful way.
Chris.
Do you anticipate that our current cadre of technicians will be appropriate for this plan going forward?
Yes. So again, we've got a lot of devices and even more devices. This will essentially be less devices. We do have additional technicians that were brought on board this year or last year because of the usage and how we know that, you know, devices break, and we want to make sure that if that happens, that there isn't a student who doesn't then have access if their peers do. But what we have also found is the devices are a lot more durable too. When we first started One2World, they were breaking left and right, and we had to, even after the first year, get better cases that had a lot more padding. And now we have found that while we still have cases for the new devices, the Chromebooks have just evolved. So we're experiencing less breakages than we have in the past. And I think in terms of the tech help separate from the physical devices breaking, I don't anticipate that being much, because again, we're just reshuffling and being more efficient with our devices versus adding a bunch more into the circuit.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you for the helpful graphics, because that helped a lot. And again, thank you for all the work that went into trying to figure out the shuffling and the gazintas and the gazintas of how all of this is working, because it is quite impressive. And if we can give more students access to technology in a meaningful way and in a more efficient way, that's fantastic. Thank you.
I would like to give a shout out to the technicians, because they work so hard, and Gail Antonetti is amazing. And she has really held it together for the district, I think, for the devices. And, you know, when we had to go to in one-to-one K through 12, it was amazing what they managed to do. We did that in about 2 weeks, and it was just amazing. So I just want to give her a shout out, because she's one of the unsung heroes of this district, I think.
Yeah, very much so, Julie.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Gail and all of the technicians who have made not only this year work, but are going to make this new plan work going forward. Quite astounding. Thank you so much. Anything else? Okay, then thank you for joining us, Julie. And again, sorry, we're running a little later than normal. So thank you for hanging on with us. The next and last order of new business we have is payroll signatory authorization. This is since we're continuing to meet in the remote context because we find that this gives the public the best access to our meetings. We aren't there in person to sign the payroll and expense warrants. So school committee votes to designate one member to sign those on our behalf when we take the votes at the meeting. At the moment, those are being also, that signing is being done remotely with kind of some back and forth scanning and whatnot. Is it also possible to do that in person? So we can kind of do it either way, depending on the committee member?
Yes. Yes, if they want to come in and sign, we have it in our office. They can come in at any time.
Okay, all right, good to know, but certainly much easier for one person to do that than for 4 people to have to do that. So that's why we take this vote. I put out a call to see if there were any volunteers. Didn't hear back from anybody, but Alicia and I are willing to do so. We were thinking it actually might make sense, especially with summertime coming up, to designate a signatory and an alternate, just so that if someone's away, actually travel might be possible this summer, that then we have someone and a backup. So we can always make sure that the bills get paid and the lights stay on and people get paid, because people appreciate that. Any other volunteers, or should we leave it in the court of me and Alicia?
I'm happy to fill either of those roles, signatory or backup.
Okay, now we can arm wrestle, draw straws. Thoughts? Alicia, you said scanning is actually not convenient for you, but in person is.
Sometimes my printer does not like to communicate to my Chromebook technology, but I live, minutes from Central. So how about I'll take primary and I'll go physically and sign it if I need to. And Chris, you can take secondary and we can go from there. I volunteered, Chris.
I think he kind of volunteered himself and then you voluntold him, but I think I kind of voluntold you. So I think that all worked out. Does that sound good? Okay.
So moved.
All right. So yes, motion for Alicia to be the primary signatory for warrants going forward and Chris to be the alternate. And second?
Second.
And vote to Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
You guys keep moving on me, Valerie.
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I hope we got everybody. I think that is unanimous. And then we are on to approval requests. We are going to table the first item of non-union and administrative exempt salary approvals. I know the vast majority of those were set, correct, Bill? But there's maybe 1 or 2.
That's correct.
You're okay with us just tabling that? We can do them
Yes.
all at once. Fantastic. So we'll put that on a future agenda when everything's tied up. And then Alicia, we're on to payroll warrant.
Excellent. Motion to approve payroll warrant 2146 SP dated May 13th, 2021 in the amount of $1,978,237.26.
Second.
And all in favor, vote to Chris.
Aye.
Alicia.
Aye.
Chen.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Valerie.
Aye.
Catherine.
Aye.
And I, unanimous.
Motion to approve expense warrant number 2146 SE dated dated May 13th, 2021 in the amount of $817,054.94.
Second.
And vote to Chris.
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I, unanimous. And minutes, what do we have for minutes?
No executive session minutes are ready, but the regular and the joint should be correct.
Okay.
There were only 2 regular session meeting minutes in the packet. There are actually 2 that are listed that are not in the packet. So I will drop an email in the morning to Nina, but there were, they listed 2 March minutes and 2 April minutes, and only the April minutes are present. So we'll only be voting on the April minutes tonight. So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So to that end, motion to approve motion to approve school committee meeting minutes for regular session, April 13th, 2021 and April 26th, 2021.
Second.
And all in favor, Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I. So that's unanimous. Thanks for keeping us on track with minutes. And the next one that's listed is a joint session with Select Board and Finance Committee. That is a meeting that school committee attended on April 8th. They're not our minutes. It's not our meeting we were intending. So we've included those minutes for the public's information as part of our packet, but since it's not our meeting, we don't have to vote to approve them. But they are there for the public's information because that was the school budget hearing before FinCom. And no personnel tonight, correct? So last motion of the evening, Alicia.
Okay, motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to Unit A and non-union personnel collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. The committee will not return to public session.
Second.
And all in favor, Chris? Alicia?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
And I, so that is unanimous. Thank you to everyone for joining this evening. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Good night, all.
Committee, check your inbox for executive session link.
Thank you, Chris.